The Scottish Sea Angling Conservation Network, or the SSACN, or SSACN, have worked with government for a number of years, and in March 2013 we were able to get the common skate and many other shark species protected by a range of statutory instruments. The statutory instrument actually means that anglers are still allowed to fish for them, but the commercials must return them to the place of contact. There are certain things when fishing for an endangered species that can use certain guidelines, codes of practice that help reduce the odds of injuring the fish. The short video to follow will show a few of the things I've found, and I hope you find it very useful. Yeah, the traces have evolved in recent years. There was a tendency in the early days to fish 8 and 10 foot traces, which meant the tail of the skate couldn't hit the main line. But now things have changed. The main components, I have a long piece of nylon which is known as a rubbing strip, and this stops the tail of the skate going through, so that is much tougher than your main line. That's £200 mono minimum. We have a self-made boom. Some people like to use plumbing pipe, 3/4 bore. I prefer the hose pipe. The idea is the electrical tie or the cable tie grips into the plastic. The reason for this, that carries the lead, and what happens if the tail of a fish does break through this £200 mono, the lead is actually jettisoned, so it means the fish isn't carrying £2 of lead around with it all the time. So the hose pipe or the plumbing pipe, it's a pure matter of choice. So I usually make that about 9 or 10 foot long, which is longer than the fish, and then we get to the business end. Your swivel there, just a standard swivel, anything 50 to 80 pound class swivel. The reason why we put the split ring on is because this stops the boom travelling any further and going down to the hook. So that is mainly just a stopper, so that can't go any further. Then we have a very short length of mono. This can be no more than 18 inches long to a 12-0 hook. The reason for the very short trace is because as soon as a fish picks it up, you get a bite detection earlier, you can hit them earlier, and that is absolutely crucial so we don't have gut up fish. So the last thing we want to do is be putting hooks in down the gut of fish. So now down to the business end. You can either use a grinding wheel to grind off the barb, or you can actually work it with a pair of pliers, and that's what I prefer to do, because I like to see a little bit of a lug left, just a little bit there, which just tends to hold the bait in place better. Yeah, my personal knot is a grinner or uni knot, which is very easy to tie. You go through the loop on the hook, leave about 6 inches outstanding, and you go around the main line about 4 times as if you were tying a blood knot. With the loop that's left, you go over the top of the twists and then go through that hole 4 times. That's the 4 times. I'm just going to get a pair of pliers now and pull that away from the hook. I'm going to wet it as well. So that's pulled up nicely there. So all I have to do now is pull that, and that will move in towards the hook. So that's the knot. It's a nice neat knot, and that will never slip. Because we fishing in such depths, we're a long way away from the anchor, rubby-dubbies don't tend to work. When I first get to a mark, I like to use what we call a kebab technique, and that's when you chop a mackerel into slices about 1/2 inch to 1 inch long, and you thread these up your line. This in effect creates its own rubby-dubby and extends the size of the bait. The type of bait you use is down to personal preference. I prefer a mixture of mackerel and goldfish, but some people like the rainbow trout, others have different preferences. But the main thing is you leave plenty of hook showing. You need a big bait, it's got to be presented well, so the bait can't slide inside the fish's mouth and just slide out again without the hook actually catching. The bait can be put on the hook. You can either put them straight on or just hanging them off, or you can sew it into the bait and have the different baits all held together with an elastic band. This keeps it into a nice neat pile and just makes sure that when the fish picks a bait up, the bait isn't masking the point of the hook, so the hook can be driven home. Because we're fishing barbless hooks and the bait could come off the hook, I like to use a small bit of inner tube, a small square, which fits over the hook, and that stops the bait from sliding off. So that's the bait on, so all we need to do now is lower it to the bottom. The rods I have are 50 to 80 pound class rods. Some of the 50s would be okay, the 30-50s for me are not just up to the job. We've broken so many of them. So the bait nicely prepared. The idea is the short trace also stops a lot of tangling, but it is important you let stuff down fairly slowly. So my own preference is to place it in a rod rest and actually use the clutch to control the speed of the descent. The reels I use are Pen 6.0s, mainly because they're virtually indestructible. There's lots of fancy reels. You can get reels with 2 speeds, you can get high speed retrievals, but you want something that's not going to let you down when you're bringing in a fish that could be well over 200 pounds. So you've got to be able to trust your gear. That's it, that's stopped going. So, put it's in gear. Line her up, drag up a little bit, ratchet on, so you can hear the noise there if a fish starts to take it. Yeah, this is probably about the 4th, 5th time Dietrich's fished with me. We first met when he came across to Loose Bay after some talk on one of the forums, World Sea Fishing forums, talking about a fish that Dietrich caught over 40 years ago. And Dietrich came across to see what all the fuss was about, and perhaps to try and have history repeat itself. So he came over in the name of Jerry Scott, which I thought was quite amusing, as he was a German living in Scotland. Dietrich was the curator at Glasgow Museum, and he was the first person to come up with the idea of tagging skate, because he was at an Ullapool competition and saw there was a lot of fish killed, and he thought, this is crazy, it just can't sustain it. So they had some cattle tags made up with Glasgow Museum written on, and that was when, Dietrich, what year was that?
Well, that must have been the mid-70s.
The mid-70s. So the Glasgow Museum then carried on tagging, and their programme was active until the Scottish Shark Tagging Programme, which took over their data, because it was felt that although they were collecting all the data and collating the data from the tagging, they weren't actually doing a lot with it. The Scottish Shark Tagging Programme was set up because there was seen a gap in data specific to Scotland. We'd heard about spur dog that could be caught in Loch Summit Native all the year round, and when we asked the fisheries minister to protect the fish, he said, without the data we can do nothing. So that was how the Scottish Shark Tagging Programme was born, and we now tag the common skate, obviously, taupe, bullhuss, the rays, and one other which forgets me. What are we tagging? Smooth down. Yeah. So the Scottish Shark Tagging Programme now tags common skate, taupe, smooth hound, the rays, and bullets. And Dietrich is here, stuck into a fish that seems to be going away from him, not coming. But are you enjoying it, Dietrich?
Yes.
Then smile then!
We have ways of making him smile.
No. She's She's not ready, man. She's not ready.
Come on, baby, I love you.
What we've actually been able to show with the skate tagging is that there are corridors. Matthew and myself started fishing the Jura Sound and tagging a lot of skate from 2009, and since then we've had one fish that we recaptured that was caught by swinbanks nearly 20 years ago, and because of that we are hoping that we can get this area, the Sound of Jura, the Firth of Lawn, the Sound of Mull and Loch Sunnett protected from the skate. The tagging programme tends to show the data collated that the females are fairly static. They move around a little bit within the area, but they don't move a lot, and the males tend to move around, probably servicing the different female populations. You got a move in yet, Dietrich?
Oh, no.
Still hard on the bottom. Yeah, it won't be long now. You'll suddenly start to see the nose start to move up and down. You'll see a softening in the rod. Start to move now. I can see the nose tip. You start to hurt it now, man. Get a turn on that now. Lean forward and get a turn or two. Good man. It's only 6 inches, but it's a turn. It's starting to tire. Which we can't say the same for you, can we? Okay.
So,
It's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Yes, come on. This is normally my job, but it's on somebody else. Right, so that's the movement. You have the thing quite high, quite low. There's absolutely no strain on my arms. Basically, I can use the rod. I can bend my knees through and then wind down. The importance of skate fishing is to take your time. You've got to consider it as a marathon, not a sprint. Just solid pressure on the rod, that's all that's needed at this stage. The fish is still on the bottom. Eventually you'll start to feel a softness as the nose starts to lift off. Sometimes they go straight back down to the bottom again. Other times they just give in and come up. But it really is so easy, there's absolutely no effort on the arms at all. Fishes start to go down again. It's a good fish, this one. So again, if the harness and everything's right, all you're doing, you're bending the knees, the butt comes up, and the tip will follow it once the fish is ready to come. And looking for 2 or 3 turns of the reel. Just steady away. You get the fish moving quickly, sometimes get them coming right over the surface. And there the fish is.
what is it? Oh, good.
Yeah, when you're bringing the fish in, you've got to be careful where you place the gaffs. The gaffs you perhaps need to get made up by some local guy, because you can't really buy ones for the occasion. But it needs to be about 8mm stainless steel, nice sharp point with about a 4-inch gape, so that you can't push the gaff too far into the fish to damage some of the internal organs. You want to be gaffing the fish about level with the eyes and about 4 inches in, between 3 and 4 inches. And that is a nice area where the fish doesn't feel any pain and it heals very, very quickly. Once you've got the 2 gaffs in, I prefer to take the hook out at this stage. With a barbless hook it should just drop straight out, and if you get someone to hold the gaffs, you can use a disgorger or do whatever you want. It's easier getting rid of the hook at this stage than it is trying to get it once it's on the deck of the boat. Okay, I've got it. Right, if you could hold that on that end, please, Dietrich. That's it. Right on the thing, so we follow the curve. Right down on it. That's it. I've got a kink in the tail, this one. Looks like it's been broken at some stage. So right to the very end, that is 80. 80. Right, so we'll just measure the wingspan over the hump, and that is 62. So that's 80 by 62, and the number is
Can you pass me my camera here, please?
the number is 4389. Yes, that's 4389. This is a record card. We record species, the sex, this is obviously female, the length, which was 80 inches, the girth, which was 63, the condition. I'll put the condition as good and put bent tail in the notes. And the bait was mackerel. Right, that's all we need. I'll be able to work out the size of that in a minute from the charts. You ready? 1, 2, 3, now lift! Regards the netting, some people prefer to put the netting under the fish afterwards, some like to lay it out in advance. And away she goes. Can you? So we're just going to work out the size of that. So it was 83 inches in the length. Sorry, it was 80 in the length. 80 in the length and 63 in the width. So that makes it a 177. 177 pounds. Just a small one. But big enough.
Big enough.